All right, John Harbaugh spoke about the hip drop tackle being gone from the NFL now, or at least a punishable offense. Here's what he had to say, and we're curious to get LaVar's thoughts on this as being a defender.
When did you ever hear about the hip drop tackle until like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? That's because it was discovered probably in rugby and started being executed as a standalone technique. It's a three-part movement. You've got to execute that play. You've got to be close enough to that ball carrier to actually get him around the hips, all right? Pull him close to yourself, swing your hips through, and drop on the back of his legs. If you're that close, wrap him up and tackle him and take him to the ground like Ray used to do, and everybody did for 100 years before that. But you're talking about a tackle that the ball carrier has no method of escape from. He can't escape. So when you drop down on the back of his legs, it's a mass, and it's 25 times more likely to have a serious injury. So it's really a bad play, and it needed to be out. And guys are going to tackle just fine without the quote-unquote hip drop tackle because they tackled just fine without it for 100 years of football before that when you never saw it, really.
So that was John Harbaugh giving his thoughts on it. Now, obviously, he lost Mark Andrews last year to the hip drop tackle in a game against the Bengals. So I think he spoke about it at the time. He was not a fan of it. There was some research that was put together as well, too, on the subject to where you had NFL exec Jeff Miller say that the play was used 230 times last year. It resulted in 15 players missing time because of injury. So it is gone, and it's a new era of football for the defenders. But
yeah, there you go. Saw a lot of missed tackles yesterday.
Is he right to say that it was not around?
Well, by the way, it's not outlawed at the college level right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you can still do it at college? All
Correct.
right.
Yeah, but they're kind of taking on the same.
Well, they got to prepare him for the NFL. Yeah.
I'll say this. You can throw out Ray Lewis if you want to. You can throw out names if you want to. Tackling for over 100 years of tackling has been get the guy to the ground. That's what it's been. So if you wanna bring it to the place where now you're having conversations of the names of the tackle. Because I can be honest about this, or I can, like for me, I never knew of any type of labeling or branding of a tackle. Like, oh, he just hit him with a such and such type of tackle. Like, there is no naming tackles. You tackle. You know what the name of a tackle is? Tackle. That's it. Like, I started hearing different things like, okay, you collar tackle, you collared him, but for the most part, you either tackled high or you tackled low. And that's what people said. You tackled them high, you're too high, or you tackled them low, that's dangerous to be that low. And that was kind of the conversation around it. For coaches to come out and have strong stances the way they're going to have it, that's fine. Have your stance. You have the credibility of being a head coach. Great. Say what you feel. If you're fast enough, you should be able to tackle them the way that you're going to tackle them, this, that, and the other. All right, that's fine. Live in that truth, live in that reality. But for defenders who have played this game and will continue to play these games, play the game, you're going to have to figure out how to do it by the rules, and that's the bottom line. Do I think it's right? I don't. And the reason why I don't think it's right is because football has fundamental things that are a part of the game that you do. You try to score the ball. You try to score touchdowns. That's a fundamental aspect of what you do. You try to block so that you have the ability to score a touchdown. You try to throw the ball or you try to run the ball. Those are the only two ways you can get into the end zone to get a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, you have to cover and you have to tackle. Those are the fundamental things that you do on the defensive side of the ball. It's less than what you have to do on the offensive side of the ball. All you do is cover and tackle. That's it. So now that we're taking all of these liberties to create all these different rules as to how you do those two things, those are the only two things that you as a defender do. All these rules that govern those two things, okay. Like, I don't like it. I don't subscribe to it. Oh, well, injuries are, I mean, we've played the game for this long. For over a century, we've played this game. At some point, you got to say, okay, if it's something that is egregiously bad, like clotheslining somebody, I get it. If it's you're blocking him up high and somebody hits him down low, I get it. But for the rest of it, it's a full contact sport. And you get a guy down. I used to try, and maybe I'm a Neanderthal. I don't know. I used to try to fold people up neatly and send them over to the sideline. That was my main objective. So now that's not the main objective. There was this thing called bringing the wood. Like, oh, he's a wood bringer.
Hell yeah.
Or there's a thumper. That's a thumper right there. That was what made a defense. You're talking about Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is one of the main dudes that was folding dudes up. With these rules that we have right now, you tell me, how many Hall of Famers do we have on the defensive side of the ball? How many do we have? Because most of these dudes would have been fined. Most of them would have been shunned. They would have been looked at as too violent, whatever it may have been, because the way they played the game is not acceptable in today's game. And that includes 52 in Baltimore. That includes him. They're taking the violence out of the game for the sake of saying that we're making the game safer. I think it sucks.
Now, what if they said, all right, LaVar, we realize that we've taken it out of the game. We're going to give you one back. Which play that's considered illegal would you take back and implement back in the game? Going head slap?
Since everything else is so soft now, I'd say clotheslining. I want to start give it back.
All right.
Just start clotheslining everybody. Just for the sake of the fact that you took away something so simple as get a guy to the ground. Like, why do we have to go away from just get a guy to the ground? Get the guy to the ground. I don't care how you get him to the ground. Get him to the ground. That's what I'm just saying. I've gone up against guys like Eddie George. I've gone up against guys like Jerome Bettis and Sam Gash and Lorenzo Neal and Max Strong. I've gone up against some really, really big, physical, strong Michael Pittman, Thomas Jones, Jamal Lewis. I have gone up against some really, really physically gifted dudes. And you're telling me a guy that runs a 4.3, a 4.4 40 at 230-some pounds, 220-some pounds, I need to start stopping and thinking about how I'm going to make contact with this guy. Screw you.
Damn.
Screw you. Respectfully.
Yeah.
You worrying about the offensive player getting hurt. What about the defender that's going to get hurt, trying to think their way through, how am I going to make contact with this guy? I'll be damned I hit Jerome Bettis or Eddie George running at me full speed, and I got to worry about how I hit him and how I'm going to get him down and what's right and what's wrong. Man, go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead, Bus. Go ahead. Y'all go right ahead. Another 60 yards. Take it. You got it.
Yeah.
I'll
simply say this. I understand we're trying to make the game safer. I just think what you're asking of defensive players is going to be really hard to do. And it also goes against, and I've said this from day one, the teachings of the rugby tackle. You heard John Harbaugh talk about it, how this whole hip drop tackle came about. And I don't know that any player is truly trying to execute that at the NFL level. To LaVar's point, they're just trying to get him down. And I think because the way we've taught tackling now, like rugby players, it's led to more of these injuries. This is called cause and effect, right? You implement a rule, you implement a technique, and this is the negative consequences of that. And the difference between rugby and football is we have helmets. We keep trying to take the head out of the – it's impossible. It's football. It's impossible. There's a reason why we wear helmets. And people use them to tackle for a long time. And did they use it in the improper way sometimes? Sure. But more often than not, when you think about concussions and you think about who's oftentimes suffering those hits, it's the offensive player. The defensive player is the hammer. The offensive player is the nail. So I understand we're trying to eliminate that and take it out of the game, but it's football. It's impossible to do that. You know, unless we just want to move to 7-on-7, where there's still going to be collisions, even in that sport. I don't see a path moving forward where you can make every single tackle and every single thing safe. And I do think this has a lot to do with player safety, but also it's going to make tackling even harder. And it's going to help offensive output, and that's something that really struggled this past year. I think a lot of the issues for the NFL moving forward is trying to figure out ways of even providing more of an advantage to offensive players and offensive football to get more points, more yards, all of that, since that's more what people want. From a fantasy perspective, from betting and everything else, and so many unders hit this year, you know, all that plays a factor in it.
Yeah, I do wonder about that, like how much of the discussion that was, because if scoring was down this year, now all of a sudden we're increasing kickoff returns. Now all of a sudden we're banning this. It's almost like this is a reaction to what had happened last year. So it's unfortunate. And but you know what? Hey, the leap is still allowed, LaVar.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
You can't leap over the line of scrimmage anymore?
I mean, I think when you leap over it for field goals and stuff like that,
I'm not talking about a field goal. I'm talking about.
I think leaping over the line is I think it's banned. I think that is banned.
Is it really? Hey, but then you know what? If that's banned, that's a badge of honor. You know, the fact that your nickname is a play that's so dangerous that they don't even allow it in the league anymore.
I'll tell you, the craziest thing about that whole discussion is I'm the one that was horse collaring people. Roy Williams probably learned that from me. I was horse collaring the hell out of people.
And it's that kind of humility.
And you want to know why I horse collared people? You want to know why I horse collared them?
Why is that?
Because I couldn't catch them. So I had to reach for what I could get. Like, if you look at any horse collar tackle, it's because I had to dive and reach for the guy that was pretty freaking fast. And that was the only part that I could get a hold of where I could disrupt their balance while we're both moving fast. Why are we losing sight of the fact that guys are moving fast? Like, okay, you have to take so many snapshots.
You move fast, don't you?
Don't you move fast? You got to take all of these snapshots during the play to diagnose, just to have the opportunity to get to the ball to make a play. You're going this way. You're motioning this way. You're changing up coverages by shifting and this, that, and the other. Where's the ball going? It's a play action fake. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Whatever it is, you got to do all of these things. And, oh, by the way, what's now supposed to be the simplest part of the freaking game, you got to think about that S2. I got to do all of this analyzing. I'm sitting there doing all of this studying and film work to make sure that I can go through a play properly. And, oh, by the way, what's supposed to be the part that's the easiest part, tackle the guy, get the guy, make contact, get him to the ground, now is being discussed in a way where you have to go into detail about how you tackle a guy. And now we have all of this terminology to explain the name of the way you're getting a guy to the ground. Holy S. You got to be kidding me.